welcome to a next episode of Woman of Purpose podcast. And today I have with me my friends Wendy and Becky. And we're going to talk about today the importance of having healthy emotions. And I'm going to have these guys introduce themselves real quick.
Hi, I'm Becky. I am a mother of 4 human beings, 3 boys and 1 girl.
And how many?
So I have dealt with some emotions and and extra children and whatnot. So I'm excited to be here and talk about emotions.
Cool. My name's Wendy Muska, and I am the mother of 2 grown sons. I've got 1 daughter-in-law and 1 almost daughter-in-law as soon as I can get a wedding date set. And I got a grandbaby on the way, so that's super exciting. I'm a therapist by trade, and I am Char's friend and I'm Becky's friend, and that is that's more gold than anything else.
She's a suck up, but that's okay.
Yeah.
We're really, really excited about this episode because we really believe that in order to be a woman of purpose, if we can identify unhealthy emotions, I think that can really help every woman be able to just enjoy walking in purpose and being a woman of purpose. So we're going to talk about what is the definition of emotions. When we talk about emotions, what is it that we're saying?
Yeah, I mean, I think emotions are those things that we feel. We always think we feel in our heart, but we really feel in our whole body. You know, it's the way that we're responding to our thoughts. It's the way we're interpreting the world around us. It's the things that come up in us sometimes that feel illogical and uncontrollable. I think that's especially true for us women, you know, and learning to mature and see those emotions with a right mind, that all emotions have a good purpose. They all do. We're all put in us by God, even things like anger. And people always say there's good emotions and bad emotions. There's just emotions.
Right.
They're not really labeled that way.
Right.
And it's something we all experience, and it affects our everyday life. It affects our relationships. It affects our the way that we do our job. It affects how we feel about ourselves, affects what we go after. I mean, it's just such a huge part of our world in all ways. It's such a great topic.
Yeah. I looked up the definition of emotions, and it said a state of feeling. So if you were to sum up emotions, it is feeling. How am I feeling? You ever hear that? You know, I feel like I looked up a couple things, and it says, like, in a crowd of people, you feel everyone is talking about you. You've ever felt that, like being a woman, you know, or somebody's looking at you and you feel like they're, you know, thinking something about you, and it's not true. You know what I mean?
That's such a lie that people believe. I gotta say, in my day-to-day practice with people, that's one of the things that holds people back the most, are these lies that we have about our feelings, right? Because other people are really not thinking about us very much.
Right.
They're really not. Think about the last time you were in a crowd.
Yeah.
Well, do you remember the people that were in that crowd?
No.
Of course not.
Yeah. Maybe the person I was with, but not the crowd.
I think there's this great quote. I think it's Eleanor Roosevelt, honestly. I think is where I got the quote from, that says, you wouldn't really worry about what people thought about you if you realized how very little they did. Other people aren't thinking about you that much.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's another one. It says, you may feel understood, talking about feelings. You may feel understood, unappreciated, or even mistreated, but it doesn't mean that it's true. You know, I hear that a lot, you know, I'm just misunderstood. No, you feel like you're misunderstood, and it's not necessarily true. But what happens is that when we get a feeling and we feel, talking about our emotions and being, you know, taking that feeling, and instead of stopping and saying, okay, hey, wait a minute, I'm feeling this way, maybe because I didn't get enough sleep. Or I'm feeling that way because maybe I'm overtired, or I'm hot, or I'm cold, or I'm hungry, or irritable, or PMSing, or menopausing, or you know what I mean?
All those things.
And so that's why it's so important that as women that we understand, we identify what emotions are. Emotions have been really deemed as negative.
Oh, right.
We don't really talk about the good emotions like joy and happy and even in being thankful. You know, we always talk about it in a negative way, and women get a raw deal. you're
do.
so emotional.
Mhm.
You're so emotional.
We're out of
You're so
control if we're emotional.
Exactly.
Right? We're out of control if we're
right.
emotional.
She's just out of control. But that's not the truth. The truth is that emotions, we talked a little bit before we started recording about, you have a great definition of it, of what are emotions.
Emotions, I feel like emotions are indicators.
Yeah.
And when we take that indicator and we allow it to dictate. So if we have an indication, then that's, if we just pause and allow it to indicate, okay, where's the root of that coming from? Why am I feeling this way?
Yeah.
To just step back and pause instead of let it dictate our action.
Right.
Because once we do that, we can't take that back. You can't take back words,
You can't.
or behavior. And if you have a moment where you're just feeling like you handled something poorly, then it's okay to say, man, I'm sorry that I behaved like that. I don't know where that came from. Yeah. But that doesn't change, like what you said, though, you may have meant it, but because of your emotion, it may have come across differently. Right. And so that's also when we say things with such emotion, it affects how it's being received. Right. So if you say one sentence monotone and then you say another one with an emotion wrapped around it, then it controls how it's received. Yep. And then there's that impact and whatnot. So
we really can't let emotions dictate how we behave in the world.
Yeah.
Because sometimes our responses, for a whole lot of reasons, and we'll get to them eventually here in our talk, there's reasons why sometimes our emotions are faulty. Yeah. Right? I know one of the things that I hear a lot in couples counseling, so this is kind of a moment for the men that sometimes tune into this podcast. Isn't that exciting?
2% of men.
Yes. Is that men oftentimes look at me and they're just like, I can't handle my wife's emotions. She's so emotional. That's what I hear all the time. She's so emotional. And I'll say, yes, you can. You are perfectly wired to help your wife manage her emotions. We are more emotional than men. Men are more logical. We're more emotional. But men are the perfect counterpart when they stay in their logic to help us with our emotions. I have looked at so many men dead in the eye, and if it's you, I'm going to say it, like to empower them to say, you are perfectly wired to manage to help manage these big feelings. And it's the emotions in women that allow us to bond and love and get up at 2 a.m. with that baby that doesn't stop crying for, hours and hours. It's emotions in us are so beautiful. Emotions are so beautiful. Right. It's kind of like a rainbow. That's where I think about it. Rainbow has a lot of colors, right? Mm-hmm. Emotions have a lot of differences. Yeah. But if we had to choose to shrink the rainbow from both ends, so let's think that you don't maybe like yellow and you don't like orange. So you want to take yellow and orange out of that rainbow, right? Mm-hmm. But then to lose yellow and orange, you also have to lose two that you really like purple and blue. If you allow yourself to explore and experience the broad range of emotion, it also means that if you allow yourself to experience your pain, you will experience joy in a huge way. Right. Too many people just are so uncomfortable with emotion that they don't want to feel them. Yeah. So they block them. Right. And then they think they go away, but they don't go away. Right. Emotions should feel to us like a cloud in the sky. Like they come and they're there and they tell us something. Right. They help us experience this humanity, right? Right. Mm-hmm. Because we are souls and spirits having this human experience. Yeah. It allows us to experience humanity, but then it should float on by. They shouldn't get stuck. Yeah. The problem is when they get stuck, those cause problems.
But I think that the reason that is because we've been trained since we've been little to not feel.
Yes.
Don't you get mad. Mm-hmm. Don't you cry. I'll give you something to cry about. But it was always in the negative. I grew up in a household where even being happy was bad. Mm-hmm. Because you couldn't be happy. You couldn't express how you were feeling because how you were feeling because of my parents or your parents didn't know how to deal with it. So they just wanted you to stop. Yep. So then how did you stop? Well, then you just say, these are not good to have. Mm-hmm. So I can't get angry. I can't get mad. I can't be sad. I can't have basically a voice on what I'm feeling. Mm-hmm. And so we've been trained since we were little kids when we're babies, you can't tell a baby to stop crying because whatever. You just, give them the bottle, change their diaper. Usually that takes care of the issue. But as kids get bigger, we tell them to stop feeling.
Yes.
Instead of guiding them and saying, hey, you're feeling this way. So then as adults, what do? We don't feel, we don't get mad. If I get mad, there's something wrong with me. If I get angry or if I get sad or from whatever, there's something wrong with me. But I'm hoping that this podcast, these episodes will help us all realize that number one, emotions, whether we put them in a negative or positive, are all good.
All good.
They're all good. It's to help me see, why am I angry?
Right.
Why am I fearful? What's making me afraid? What is making me happy? And it's to identify those things so that we can manage them well and enjoy life and not have them dictate to us.
Right.
I spend a lot of time in my office helping adults figure out their feelings, because when they were children, either because they were in like an overpowering negative environment, an abusive home, a neglectful home. A lot of people that just come out of a neglectful home where they just weren't really taught about their feelings are really uncomfortable having feelings as adults. I just want to give listeners a resource. I really like John Gottman's techniques called emotion coaching parenting. There's on my personal website, there's a teaching I did on that recently, that it really allows us to step into our kids' emotions, validate the emotion, and then tell them, but the behavior is not okay. Now, just think about adults. If they were taught that as children, to say, oh, I'm having an emotion, but I have to control my behavior that goes with it, right? Too many adults run around acting like children. I feel it, so I'm going to do something with it. And then it disrupts our relationships. It disrupts everything in our life because we're not acting in the world in a way that we feel good about. An hour and a half later, oh my gosh, blew that. Or we're just perseverating on a feeling that we have for somebody, and that's how it's impacting our life. So emotion-focused parenting is the idea of when a child is experiencing anger or displaying anger, because maybe they had to stop playing with a friend because it was time to go home, and they get angry. I get angry if somebody tells me I gotta stop playing with my friends and go home before I want to. I get angry, right? So it's looking at a child and saying, I understand that you're angry. It's not fun to stop what we're having fun with, is it? But it is time to go. It's validating that your feelings are good indicators, because otherwise, if we don't do that well, it just becomes vast confusion for adults.
Right. Yeah, that's good. I like that. Validate.
Well, in the definition, I looked up last night, I was having a conversation with my son. We were just talking about indicators versus dictators. And in the definition of indicator is a state or level, a sign that shows or suggests the condition or existence of something, which just made me think of, what is the condition in the posture of our hearts that are indicating the emotion, so what is the root that needs to be, removed to that it, that's being triggered,
right?
And all emotions are good. They're not all tied to a lie.
Right.
It's just what we do with them.
Yeah. Right.
So
that become problematic.
Yeah. And to dictate is to lay down authoritatively. And when we're dictating, letting our emotions dictate how we respond and receive, it's just it can be very prideful and lacking of self-control. So I think that when you have that indicator to just pause, because you want to respond versus react. Right.
Right.
So,
yeah, exactly.
I think an important piece is when you were talking about how we start having and feeling emotions and whether they're a dictator or not, is we're always interpreting the world, right? And we interpret the world through what I like to call the veil of our perception. So between us and what's going on in the world is this, if you think about it like a filter or a veil, and within that veil are all of our experiences, right? And so when you think about heart condition, those experiences are in that veil of perception. And so we're looking at the world and we interpret things, and it comes through that veil of perception, becomes a thought, an interpreted thought of what's going on, and then that thought becomes the feeling. Okay. So that's kind of how that process happens. But if you have a lot of negative things in your veil, a lot of negative self-talk, experiences that are unresolved, here's a good example, just a practical example. Say you're at the grocery store, right? You walk in the grocery store, you see this friend that you haven't talked to in a while, way down on the other end of the produce aisle, right? And you walk in and you're like, hey, and you give her a big wave and she doesn't wave back at you, right? If you have in your veil of perception rejections or insecurities, we talked about insecurities before, rejections or insecurities, you're gonna interpret that as, oh, she must be mad at me.
Correct.
Oh my gosh, now I've got guilt and shame and maybe I'm angry at her, like, how dare you snub me, right?
Right.
When we look at how are other ways that we could interpret that, maybe the person was distracted. Maybe they don't have their glasses on. Maybe they didn't recognize you because you lost 30 pounds. I don't know. You know, maybe they're distracted by their toddler. Maybe they just had a fight with somebody and that's in their mind and they're just not looking around. If we open up our mind to the idea that there's other interpretations for events and we're very purposeful on not holding on to resentments and anger and keeping our heart condition good, it allows us to interpret things well. I find that most of the disruptions in personal relationships are usually misunderstandings. Misunderstandings of the way that something's been interpreted.
Right. And then if I, like you said, if I lean more towards feeling rejected and having that negative self-talk, if I lean more towards that, then it's going to trigger those negative emotions and feel like, oh, they don't like me or they're mad at me or what did I do? And those things go over and over. So emotions are feelings, how we feel, and how we feel comes from our thinking.
Absolutely.
So we nailed it, you know? So if we want to change the way that we feel, then we need to change the way that we think.
Absolutely. Right.
And that's where we have to renew our minds.
Exactly.
Because, you know, renewing our minds is crucial. New thoughts come from new perspective. So if we're renewing our minds with God's word and what God says about us, and we're renewing our minds with dealing with hard issues and you're gaining new perspectives, then when you see that lady in the grocery store, you won't look at it through a lens of rejection. You won't jump to the worst case scenario and let it be a slippery slope, you know, that all of a sudden then you get in the car and you have a mental breakdown because you've determined exactly why she rejected you, you know, which is silly.
That's really what we do in therapy. Or if you get into any kind of counseling, or if you have a mentor, if you don't have a mentor in your life, you should have a mentor in your life. We should all have a mentor in our life. Is change perspectives. You know, and I kind of wrote down the lies that I stumble across with people most often in my office. Just a few. I mean, I didn't do an in-depth thought for it, but I'm sure there's many, many more. But here's some lies we believe. We believe that there's a right way to feel about things. And if I'm not feeling the right way, there's something wrong with me. Right?
Yes.
Or I shouldn't be feeling angry, or I shouldn't be feeling snubbed. And sometimes it's because other people tell us we shouldn't be feeling that way.
Right.
We don't need other people to validate us completely for our truth to be our truth. If it's a stumbling block, we need to take it out and look at it. We really do. But to be like, okay, I am feeling that way. What's going on? Instead of just saying, oh, I'm feeling that way and it's wrong and I'm just going to shove it away. That's a lie that people believe. Another one, I see this a lot with women. Oh my goodness. I'm weak if I tell people that I'm struggling with my feelings. Women from social context now, we're almost like we're supposed to be guys. You know?
A little harder.
We're just supposed to we're just not supposed to be as feeling as we are. And that makes me so sad for women because we're so beautifully wired to be emotional, right? But so many people feel like I'm weak if I tell people I'm struggling with my feelings. I'm struggling with sadness. I'm struggling in my marriage. I'm struggling to love my spouse, you know, then I'm weak. And if we really think about, I know when you two ladies, if you come to me with something you're struggling with, I feel so honored. I'm like, man, people that come into my office that want to have me part of what they're struggling, it's an honor, you know? And other people feel that way when I come to them with my struggles, right? And that's where we get healing and perspective change. Being emotional is being out of control. A lot of women feel that way. Others don't approve of my feelings, I'm wrong. And sometimes it's, I want other people to stop what they're doing because of how it makes me feel.
That's a big one.
That's a big one.
That's a really big one.
Mhm.
But here's the truth is that somebody can't make you feel a way.
They can't. No.
No, we get to choose.
We get to choose how
We
we
get to choose.
We get to
We
choose
do,
how we
period.
feel.
Right.
So emotions are feelings.
Mhm.
And our
Yeah.
feelings come from the way that we think.
Mhm.
So this is how much power that we have.
I just wrote
Is
down the
that-
power, so that must be something.
Is that we get to change the way that we feel. We get to change our emotions.
Uh-huh.
We get to change this thing that we're talking about. It's like, oh, you're so emotional, here, take this pill. It's going to help your emotions. I'm not against medication. It's all good. But we have the power to be able to change our perspective of, okay, why is this feeling in my life? What happened? Why did that behavior from somebody else make me feel this way?
Right.
Immediately, we want to get
Mhm.
mad at the person that made me feel that way.
Right.
When it's
we
like,
get to
wait-
choose how we respond.
Right.
Or we want them to stop
Right.
what they're doing because of how
Right.
we're feeling. But
Yeah.
the fix is us
Yeah.
managing how we're feeling and why we're triggered by that.
Yeah.
Because that becomes such a part of relationships. You
Mhm.
stop doing that because I don't like how I feel.
Right.
But that gives the other person all the power over your peace and joy and happiness.
Right.
Instead of saying, you know what? I need to figure out why I'm responding to it that way.
Right.
And I need
Yep.
to respond to it different. You can't change anybody else. Trust
and
me.
if feelings are
You can't do it.
no, if feelings are indicators, then if somebody does something, it makes me feel a certain way, then it's an indicator and I need to stop and say,
Yeah.
okay, something is indicating
Mhm.
that I'm angry.
Right.
Why am I angry?
Right.
And sometimes it can be a root to something that is something maybe from childhood or whatever. And it could just be a simple thing where you're just like, wait a minute. I'm just tired.
Mm-hmm.
It has nothing to do with anything.
Mhm.
And I just need to, I love what you say, Wendy, and you say it often. It's like you say, not everything that I'm thinking needs to be talked about or needs to be said.
Mhm.
And so sometimes I need to just go have that conversation in my head or lock my door in my
Just put
bathroom
yourself
and
in time out.
and have a conversation with myself and just say, okay, there, I've had the conversation and then move on, you know?
Yeah. I have incredible sometimes fights with people inside
Yeah.
my head. And by the time I get to the end of the fight, I'm like, that was not
Yeah.
that. I'm glad I didn't put that outside of me.
Right.
Because we get consequence in our relationships and in our lives for what comes out of us.
Yeah.
It's not always exactly what's going on
Yep.
inside of us.
Yep.
I mean, God wants us to be living a life of joy and peace.
Yep.
So if we have something that's completely all the time messing up our peace,
Yeah.
we need to handle that.
Yeah.
But we really need to be thoughtful in our responses. And even just talking about anger for a minute,
Yep.
because that's the emotion that always gets the bad rap, right?
Yeah.
Don't feel angry
Yeah.
about anything ever.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Anger actually has a really good purpose.
Yeah.
Anger is the root of most social movement and social change.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It is, if we didn't get angry about people kicking puppies, there wouldn't be any laws against kicking puppies, right?
They should be kicked back,
Right.
just FYI.
Stop.
Right,
Right.
right. Yeah.
Anger is the thing that comes that the response to anger is the thing that makes us protect people.
Yeah.
It's the protective thing that really come up in men a lot. It's a very protective thing. I'm going to protect my family.
Yeah.
I'm going to rise up in that anger.
Yeah.
There's righteous anger. There's anger in the Bible.
Yeah.
I mean, God got mad, people.
Yeah.
Got mad at whole people groups.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So anger has a good intention.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Again, it's an indicator to either fix
Mhm.
something in me or to
Fight for something.
fight for something that that needs to
Right.
be fought for. Yep,
Mhm.
definitely.
You know, Isaiah 55:10-11, it says, "The rain and the snow come down from the heavens and stay on the ground to water the earth. They cause the grain to grow, producing seed for the farmer and bread for the hungry. It is the same with my word. I send it out, and it always produces fruit. It'll accomplish all that I want it to, and it'll prosper everywhere I send it. You will live in joy and peace." So what we say has a ripple effect.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
what we say, so our words we just need to be in control of what we say,
Yep.
because our words are being sent out,
Right.
and they represent we want to represent Christ well,
Yeah.
you know.
And that's another good, really, podcast to do is the power of our words.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to wrap up this episode, this session here that we're talking about healthy emotions. And I just want to let you guys know to check out our website, womenofpurpose.net. And we have a YouTube channel now, Women of Purpose on that. And we're also going to put Wendy Muska's link to your website. We'll put that on the bottom of the website or whatever. These guys will figure it out. Just go and you'll find the link somewhere. So anyways, thank you for joining us and stay tuned for the continuation of Healthy Emotions.